And we are live right now.
All right.
Boom. Who do we got with us, Bruno?
Hey, Scotch Test Dummies. I'm Scott, first
I'm
of all.
Bart right here.
And with us today, Whiskey Raj, or Raj Sabrawal. Raj, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me on. We own a little company called Purple Valley Imports that imports mostly whiskey from around the world. And now in our 8th year and growing. So, we started in 2010 with Amrut was our first one, and we've expanded, keep adding new brands every year, and really have a true mix of world whiskeys.
Yeah, now we're going to come back to the English Whiskey Company. We may even talk about en route. I'm guaranteed we will a little bit. But what else are you importing in that you want to talk about?
So we do Sullivan's Cove from Tasmania, Blackadder, which is an independent bottler, Stock and Barrel, which is from Canada, made by Stillwater's Distillery.
Delicious.
They do both a single malt and a rye, and then they've just introduced 2 new Canadian blends that are made using their own juice. So they're using their corn whiskey, their rye whiskey, and their malt whiskey to blend it in. They're incredible whiskeys. I got to send you guys some samples of that.
Thank you.
And then we do a couple of other independent bottlers. Right, one called Lady of the Glen and another one called Five Lions, which are relatively new, but they have great products and really selective about the type of casks that they get. And then a gin from Spain called Mahone, which is the only geographically protected gin that's available in the U.S. They've been making it on the island of Menorca since 1750. Amazing gin. And a cognac brand called Drouet, which is a family-owned 4th-generation family. So we're really selective about the brands that we bring in. We try to make sure that there's a family history and story behind it, and it's certainly independently owned and or family operated.
Beautiful, beautiful. And today we are focusing on the English Whiskey Company and, in particular, the Peated single malt. What are we going to do with this, Scott?
We're going to test it!
Yeah,
all right.
Test it off to him. I wanted to see if he could bring it out.
Yeah, I got it right here.
I'm busy. I'm trying to get this out on Twitter.
Oh, whatever.
Oh, okay.
You've got your bottle there. I've got to admit, just talking packaging, this is a beautiful thing. The fading in of the darker red on it. And you know what else is real nice? The heft of this, the glass, the weight of the glass itself.
Yeah.
I mean, they've just done wonderful. Let me get this out of the can. But, I mean, if you see it on the shelf, you're going to see this beautiful, beautiful deal here. And obviously, this little sticker that they can throw on for their peated.
It's like you're saying, Bart, it's a great bottle. I mean, obviously, when you're done with it, it makes a great decanter. Just fabulous packaging on it.
Yeah, they really, really did. I mean, I've talked about the heft of the glass is there. It's got this really nice wood top. It's actually really large and oversized. So I can see exactly what you're saying about turning that even into a decanter. Yep. I was really impressed with their packaging on this.
And then in the packaging, they also do the classic, which is their first whiskey, which is the unpeated one. Similar packaging, but then they also do both of those come in 46% versions as well. So they're
looking at that,
different packaging.
Exactly what they're doing. They're able to add in just a different sticker to reflect whatever they've got in there.
Yeah, because they've done some special releases as well using the same kind of packaging. Single cask releases.
We're getting a couple of comments on the echo, and we apologize. We were trying to fix that beforehand and couldn't. We've got our volume down a little bit. Raj's is down a little bit. Raj doesn't have earbuds that have a microphone in them, so we might have to work with what we got here. We've got 34 people with us at least that are signed in to YouTube right now, Raj.
Well, and one solution, and Bruno's always trying to do this, is to get me to talk less. So, Raj, if you want, I'm going to pour these for each of us. And if you want to just kind of chat about what they are in the history and whatever you want to bring forth, we'll be quiet.
So the English Whiskey Company started in. We actually applied for their permit in 2005, and were granted their permit in 2006, in January of 2006. That was the first new whiskey distillery in England in over 100 years. The reason there weren't a lot of whiskey distilleries in England was because the excise department had put regulations on the size of the requirement, so you had to have a large still. The St. George's distillery that makes the English whiskey actually had to go with an 1,800 liter still, which is a lot larger than a lot of stills that are used in Scotland. So it's a family-owned distillery. The Nelstrops own it. They are sixth-generation farmers. And when Mr. Nelstrop was turning 60, he said, hey, you know what? Instead of selling all our barley to Scotland, we should have our own distillery. And it was something that he really was passionate about. He was a big whiskey lover, and fortunately he passed away in September of 2014. But he did live to see the whiskeys come to evolution and get released, and enjoyed certainly some of them before he unfortunately passed away.
Beautiful.
So the unique thing is there's a lot of barley that's grown locally in the area. The English Whiskey Company is based in Norfolk, which is about an hour and a half north of London, and really pristine water. These cask strength ones do vary, obviously, by cask. This one that we have now is, I believe it's 60.9%, Bart?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. The unique thing about this is, so when the distillery started, they were looking for, obviously some expertise to help them along. So they brought Ian Henderson, who was about to retire. They convinced him to come and work for them. A lot of the listeners probably know that Ian Henderson was the master distiller at Laphroaig. And he came in, and at that time, both James and Andrew, his son, were just fixated on making an unpeated whiskey. And Ian said, no, you have to have a peated whiskey. So convinced him to make this peated whiskey. But the interesting thing is that the peat that they used is mainland peat. So it's locally sourced peat. So what you're lacking is that iodine and brininess that you get from island peat.
Yeah, the nose seems really light and crisp.
And because and obviously this because of it's at a high strength. I mean, just adding a little bit of water to it really, opens it up. Like I'm just going to put like 2 drops in there, and
now I sat down with this last night, Raj, and let me tell you, I wanted to beforehand. We've had a couple of whiskeys that are peated, not in Scotland, and they haven't been my favorite.
Right.
One was from Switzerland, and one was from Ireland.
Yeah, well,
so I was a little scared going in, just because English Whiskey Company peated. I wanted to kind of see what I was getting myself into here.
Well, he's been warming up to the peats. I'm a peat hound. I love it. But go ahead.
I was very surprised.
Now I'm
surprisingly
coming
good
into
way.
This blind. I'm coming in blind. I haven't tried it yet. He pre-tasted. I have not. So go ahead, though. Go ahead again.
So, Scott, when you tried it, you said you were surprised. Did you? I mean, before this, what is your go-to peated whiskey?
Within the last year, we just put out our top 5 world whiskeys of the year.
He's had a full conversion.
There may or may not be some peated whiskeys on my list, which would be a first.
Okay. Right.
I love I don't want to tell you what was at the top of my list, but the Ardbeg Dark Cove and the Octomore 6.3 was on there.
Okay.
I love Laphroaig Triplewood.
Okay.
We got a hold of an old Brooklottie 3D3 that really, he said, made him sit up.
Nice. Yeah. So would you say that has a higher or lower ppm than Lefroy?
It's oh, let's wait till I get back to the tasting, and I'll let
Okay.
you know. It came across. Okay, the nose is a little deceiving. It's a really mild nose.
Yes.
I was getting a sweetness,
Yes.
roasted nuts, and a mild peat on the nose.
Yes. Yeah. It certainly has a mild peat on the nose. You're right. I mean, it's not, when you first nose this, you're going to say, oh, it's not really a heavily peated whiskey.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and part of that too is because you're probably, you're used to Isla peat, which has different aromas to it, right?
Yes.
Whether you're looking at a Bunnahabhain, which is a lightly peated whiskey, or something like Octomore, which is, over the top peat, they're all going to have that really noticeable aroma that you're not getting here.
Right.
No.
Yeah. He used to complain that he could pick up my heavily peated Lefroigs and Ardbegs and Port Charlottes as he sat next to me. And that's
Yes.
what I noticed right here. This is light and feathery, and I can just get a hint of peat, but it's definitely no ashtray, no strength.
Now I'll tell you, on my first tasting note, neat is, oh my God.
Really? See, I've not sipped this yet.
Yeah, I mean, actually, and I can't wait for Bart to taste it. If you just take a little sip of it.
Mm. Ooh, before, I mean, as soon as you put it in your mouth without even breathing through the nose.
Are you kidding me?
Delicious.
Oh my goodness. It's like continuing to open up.
Yep.
Wow, and then it has that beautiful, not the taste of a spearmint, but that the way that your mouth reacts and that cool crispness that's inside your palate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got that astringency that certainly adds to it. The tannins are soft, but you do get that whole earthiness, that fire, smoky sort of coating in your mouth, but it's really rich. It's really, really a big mouthfeel.
Yes,
it's got all that fats and oils.
Yeah, it's not like it's trapped in the middle or even on the back end. It's right up front.
Yep.
Glorious. Yeah, and then it tails off. And even it goes back to like a clean crispness in the aftertaste.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm getting it. So to me, it's more, it's certainly more peaty than smoky. But it has that that sort of deciduousness that you get if let's say you're walking through the woods, you're going to get all those aromas on the woods. If it's just rain and it's still kind of damp out there, some of those aromas are coming through.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a bit of saltiness. There's a bit of sweetness too, getting sweetness up the top and on the back of the tongue.
Yeah, it's holding on my tongue just beautifully. And then that strong ABV is really present as well, giving a little bit of spark early on.
Yep.
Really lively on the tongue.
And certainly, I mean, even though the high ABV on it, you can still drink this neat. I mean, you don't have to bring it way down. We just, I think all of us put a couple of drops of water in there, and that's all.
Right.
And, I mean, the only reason you'd want to add a little more water into it is open it up and get more of the aromas coming through, which, a few more drops, that it's not going to change the taste. It's just going to open it up. Because all those rich fats and oils in there, you can see how it does really cling to the glass.
I noticed last night as I added water, like you say, it really didn't affect the taste at all. If anything, making it more fuller and more earthier.
Yep.
And I got a little bit more of a mintiness comes out with the water as well.
Right.
Now, someone did ask, Raj, what's the price on this? What does it go for?
This is between 100 to 110.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said this is the cask strength. This one's 60.9%. You did say that there is one that is lower.
They do a 46% version, which is around 65 to 70 a bottle.
Nice. I love that they still keep it at a little bit higher ABV.
Yes.
Now, be honest. How does the 46%er compare to the 60%er?
Well, I mean, obviously the 46% is more approachable and more drinkable. I mean, this actually at the 3 years ago at the San Francisco International Spirits Competition, it won double gold and best in class. It really blew all the judges away.
Yes.
But the 46%, for everyday dram, I think in a 46, I tend to get more sort of bacon fat, pork belly, sort of roasted pork belly notes on it. So it's a different whiskey. This is certainly, I mean, you're getting cold weather over there right now in Kansas. This is a great whiskey to be warming yourself up with.
That is right. The fans know this is definitely, for those that are wondering, the kind that I would pour, wrap up in a blanket in front of the fire, and just let the ice happen outside. There's no need to go out if you've got this.
You're right.
So
yeah, this will as they say, this will warm you to your core.
Now, how many states is this in? We haven't seen the English Whiskey Company here in Kansas. We noticed all of a sudden we've had en route fusion in the past. Yep. Then recently we've also seen the en route peated and the en route, I think it was the cask strength that showed up. I believe
so.
Cask strength and the regular single malt.
Maybe that's what it was, just a regular single malt.
But yeah, I think I'm just trying to remember if my distributor in Kansas he may have brought in a little bit of English whiskey, but so it's probably available in like very few stores.
Okay.
We do have distribution in about 45 states.
Lovely.
But I mean, I'll be honest, the Amrut is our biggest seller, and that's in all the states, and English whiskey is probably in 3/4 of those states.
Wow.
It's still just like when we first brought in Amrut, we had challenges with trying to bring in trying to convince people that India made a great single malt whiskey.
Right.
And we're still facing the same thing with English whiskey.
Not
Australian whiskey, Australian whiskey, the same thing.
Not for long, man. Once they get a taste of this.
Well, there's six to eight other distilleries operating in England. 2 of them will be releasing their whiskeys this year. They're ready to have them ready. And the rest of them will come on board. So I think that just as you get that, I mean, it's sort of healthy competition. Increases the awareness of England making great whiskey, great single malt whiskeys. Right. It's funny because I sort of compare it to sparkling wines from England, which they've been making them for a while. People are just starting to learn about them in North America. The English have been drinking them for a long time, and they're amazing wines, amazing sparkling wines. They just keep winning all kinds of awards, and they just signed a deal with an American importer to bring in a big selection of the different ones. So I think that's just raising that awareness of England as a producer of wine and spirits, other than gin. I mean, England's always sort of been known as a gin producer, right? That's what you always think that when you think of spirits, you're always, in England, you're thinking gin.
Sure.
But this is an example of, I think this is a great example of it. It was England's first new distillery in over 100 years. It continues to sort of set the bar on what's style of whiskey should be. I mean, obviously, just because they're 150 miles from the Scottish border or less than that, they're not trying to emulate Scotland. They're trying to make their own whiskey, but they are adhering to the Scottish single malt regulations.
I was going to ask you exactly where they were located, so they're that far north.
Yeah, they're about an hour and a half north of London.
Okay, wonderful.
Really nice, pristine water, great, locally sourced barley.
Beautiful. Go ahead. You have a question?
Raj, I even see online, and we have a comment on Twitter mentioning about the English Whiskey Company and their chapters.
Yeah.
Now, and someone asks what this version how this compares to Chapter 4, and can you explain how that works?
Okay, so when the distillery first started, because they didn't have 3-year-old whiskey, so they couldn't really call it whiskey, they started releasing chapters. And they've continued to do that. But sort of their benchmark, Chapter 6 is sort of their classic single malt or unpeated. And this one is, I'm not familiar with Chapter 4, but I believe that this peated is more like Chapter 11 or Chapter 12. It's a richer and bolder whiskey. We didn't bring any of the chapters into the U.S. market because I thought we start doing that, it's going to sort of be confusing. And they had already decided to release the classic and the peated, and we decided to go with those two for the U.S. market. And they're actually right now in the process of rebranding it. So the peated is now going to be called the Smoky, and they'll still have the classic, but you'll see sometime later this year we'll see new labeling, new packaging for the whiskeys.
Excellent. Whiskey Lassie just came in. Joanne just came in and said hi to everybody, and then there's a bunch of side comments.
Joanne said she's scared because this is another cask strength.
Oh, don't be scared. This is blanket wrap.
Cask strength whiskeys are our friends, you know.
Oh, they're my best friends.
She thinks that we get a little crazy on cask strength.
She's talking about us. Yeah, she sent us some cask strength to Matt, and we just went off the hook.
Oh, did you? Well, you guys are a little wacky anyway, so. You know.
Thank you. Yeah. So we tried to tell her this is like a Monday at noon for us when we've done this is nothing different.
Well, yeah, it's a good thing you're out there protecting the citizens of Kansas, you know. So
that is correct. That is correct. Now I will mention on that note, Raj and I got to hang out in person. What is it? About a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit more than that.
Yep.
Hold on, we got a question that came in that I'm supposed to ask. Does Raj have a particular favorite chapter? Sorry, I wanted to get that in.
You know, I don't remember them off the top of my head, but I do have some of the chapters that were single cask chapter releases that were finished in a sherry cask. I think I'm thinking of maybe it's chapter 12 that was a sherry cask release. There's also a couple of Founders reserves that I have, which are amazing. You know, they're sort of limited releases. There were actually Blackadder, who's an independent bottler that we represent, did 2 English whiskeys last year. This one is the single. I don't know if people can you see that?
Bring it up just a little bit.
There we go. Okay, so this is the English whiskey classic cask strength that was aged in a Sauterne wine cask, and it's at 63.5%.
Wow.
So really, really nice whiskey. And then they did a peated one that spent the full time in a Muscatel wine cask. Muscatel is a type of sherry. And this one came in at 63.4.
Wow, you are speaking Scots language.
Yes.
So this is really unusual, having a peated whiskey that was in a wine cask like that. I mean, a lot of peated whiskeys do work well with a port or a certain sherry cask. They really pair well together. So these are sort of similar to some of the Founder reserves or special casks that were released by the English Whiskey Company. Blackadder didn't do anything to them. He bought them and decided to bottle them, and you know they always do their raw cask whiskeys where you can see the charcoal and the sediment.
Yes, I remember you let me sample some of that when I was in Pittsburgh.
Yep. So this is part of the Blackadder raw cask series. Unfortunately, we're all sold out of these. I do have the little minis left, but the full bottles went some time ago.
I would imagine that was Whiskey Wise that asked the question, and then Joanne brought out that their chapter 7 was a rum. Did she say it was a rum cask?
Yes, they did a rum cask.
That was her favorite on that one.
Yep, yeah, they did a rum cask, and they have some other casks right now aging in different types of wood, and we will. I plan to be over there in March of this year, so I'm going to try and select some single casks that we'll bring over.
Beautiful.
And also the for those listeners who are members of the Single Cask Nation or the Jewish Whiskey Society, they have just purchased a cask, the English whiskey Sauterne wine cask, which should be. I think we're planning on bottling that in February.
Wow.
And should be over here in March available.
Beautiful. Now to circle back. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say real quick for people that have joined in, we are with Whiskey Raj.
Right.
Whiskey Raj Sabharwal. We have the English Whiskey Company Peated Single Malt, bottled at 60.9%.
Cask strength, delicious.
Yes, and it's one of those we if you missed some of our notes earlier, really light on the nose. It's deceiving, and you put it in your mouth and
explosion.
Yes,
beautiful taste explosion going on. Now to circle back real quick, and I know someone else had mentioned we're still getting some reverb. That's fine. But Raj was such a good host. I was in Pittsburgh. He'd seen that on Twitter. Picks me up. You take me to Acacia, and that's where I get to try the Sullivan's Cove French Oak,
right?
Which they still sold at a reasonable rate, even though he did hide it underneath the counter.
Yeah.
Then you brought out some of these samples, and you did have some English whiskey company that night, and that was the first time I tried it. Just wonderful, and thank you again. You were such a good host when I was there.
Well, it's great. It was great to see you, Bart, and great to share some of the Pittsburgh hospitality with you. I mean, Acacia does have a great selection of whiskeys, and there are several different bars in Pittsburgh that tend to bring in everything they'll buy everything I bring in, which is really nice to have local bars supporting us.
You bet. Well, Pittsburgh was a wonderful area. Everything they got going on, I'm sure we probably could have hit 4 or 5 different. I did stop in at Wiggle, and it was funny because you and I had connected on Twitter, and when I was at Wiggle talking to them, they said, "Hey, you got to find and talk to Raj," and I'm like, "I already have." So go ahead. You had something come in, Scott?
Two things for Raj. First off, the North Shore Whiskey Club says they want to know when their minis are going to be in the mail of the broadcast. And they said, thanks for coming to Boston and doing their tasting.
That's Shag and Heavy D over there.
Shag and Heavy D.
All right.
And then
that was a fun tasting.
A question from Frank Lampard. He wants to know, do you expect a price drop once sales increase?
Well, yes and no. I mean, there's always a critical level that if we see sales going up, we will obviously be able to bring in more into the market. Certainly, the drop in the exchange rate is helping, and I think that the problem is that when you bring something down in price and then the exchange rate goes up again, it's hard to increase the price. So we have to keep it at a level where it's going to make sense. But I think when we bring in the new iterations of the English whiskey, the new packaging, we should hopefully see a price decrease in that.
Wow. Well,
I don't think the cask strength. I don't think the cask strengths are going to drop that much. I mean, a lot of what goes into the cost of the cask strength is obviously the packaging. And the whiskey, and the fact that you have a single cask that's going into there. Obviously, when you have a single cask, it's more costly to produce than when you vat several casks and you're getting that blending going on.
Right. Well, and this is such a beautiful single cask. I mean, this is really, you hit it on the head that the nose clean and crisp and surprising, because I'm sitting there thinking, well, where's that heavy peat that I thought I was going to get? And then the way the peat hits on the forefront rather than in the middle at the end, yet it's still lingering in that aftertaste in a very faint, kind of clean, crisp sort of way.
Right.
Now,
so I'd asked Scott that earlier about whether he thought, and Bart, you can chime in now, but whether you think the peat level on this, the ppm, is higher or lower than Lafroig.
Oh boy. Just with your question, I'm inclined to say that it's going to be higher. I will admit, not reading into the question, I would have said I thought it was lower than Lafroig, but I got a feeling I'm going to be wrong on that.
I would agree. It does seem like it still seems a mild to medium peat, but it's at the same time it's very robust.
Right. It's got a lot of, not meat, but it's got a lot of presence.
Right. So it is actually higher. Lefroy typically comes in around 50 ppm. This is 55. So but again, because the different type of peat, the different style of peat, it's obviously making a difference in the finished product.
Now, I'm curious, and I want to let you talk for a bit too. What goes in, and I don't know how much you can share even behind the scenes, but into what you guys do as a company in terms of importing, what you have to do, or what you look for when you pick a company that you're going to partnership with?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, there's two parts to it. The first one, when we select a company that we're going to represent, we try to make sure they have a pedigree or history, that they're, I said earlier, they're independent or family owned. So we have a direct relationship with the whiskey makers, the people behind the scenes, who are actually doing the work and are focused on it. So I like to think of the fact that we have a real partnership. I mean, we're the conduit that gets their whiskey that they're making to the market. And likewise, we try to make sure that our distributors in the U.S. Share that same passion that we have. And so as an importer in the U.S., for those of you who don't know, the U.S. is a 3-tier system. So there has to be an importer, which is us. Then we have to sell to distributors, and we're in 45 states, so we deal with about 50 different distributors, because in some states we have more than one. And then they, in turn, sell to retailers and bars and restaurants. So you get 3 different layers in the system, and that all came into place after Prohibition was repealed, to allow the states to have more control over the sale of alcohol, sale of liquor. So we, as the importer, we act as the marketer for the products as well. We act as a representative for them. We try to make sure that the products we bring in, people are aware of it through things like this, getting with you guys and doing this, public tasting events. I rather than advertising and paying for $5,000, $10,000, $7,000 for a full page ad, I'd rather take that money and spend time doing small tastings. You had North Shore Whiskey Club on. I did a tasting up there. We had 50 people, and we did 7 or 8 whiskeys blind. So it was a whole group of new people being exposed to all these whiskeys that I import, and people were like, and I love doing blind tastings because people have no idea what's in their glass until the very end. Right. And that was a real eye opener for it, and a lot of people were just, along with the English whiskey and Amrut and some of the other ones, just amazed at what's there.
Well, I remember you told me when we were just sitting at the bar at the Sullivan's Cove French Oak, you'd had, I can't remember the exact number of cases, but you said you were really working it, and people are like, they hadn't heard of it, and then boom, it ends up just hitting big, and you sold out of it in like 3 weeks, I think.
Well, yeah, that's funny, because we had Sullivan's Cove, and it was, and part of what people don't realize is that, so a distillery like Sullivan's Cove, which is on Tasmania, they have to bring in the oak casks. They use ex-bourbon casks, so they're bringing those casks from the U.S. to Australia. There's a cost involved in that. They do everything by hand, so it's the cost involved in producing the product. But they take their time in aging it. Then all of the bottling, labeling, and everything else is done by hand. The filling is done by hand. It's a really small operation. And then we have to ship the product from Australia to the U.S., to our warehouse. Then it has to get from our warehouse to the distributors and so on. So there's all those costs involved in it. But we had the whiskey sitting there, and people were saying, "Oh, it's too much. It's too, it's expensive. Nobody wants it." As soon as I think it was Whiskey Magazine named Sullivan's Cove French Oak the best single malt in the world, the phone was like off the hook. People are going, "How much do you have? How much can I get?" And I'm going, this is the same whiskey we had like a month ago that you didn't want.
That's right.
So it was so funny, but now we can't. We haven't had any French oak for 2 years now. I mean, they were depleted, whatever they have. The only place that, if you want any, the only place to get it is actually at the distillery. They don't even ship. They can't ship out of Australia. We do get the double cask and the French and the American cask, but we get probably a total of maybe 50 or 60 cases, so a year. So that's less than 300 bottles that we're getting for the entire country. And if anybody watches Booze Traveler, the show, their first episode of this season was actually, they were in Australia. Ironically, we were there visiting the distillery last year when Booze Traveler was there filming. But again, that show highlighted Sullivan's Cove, and this week I've just been dealing with people saying, "Where can I buy the whiskey?"
You bet.
Saying, "Well,
Yeah.
we don't have any."
We actually had a fan out of Australia that contacted us, bought a few glasses, and then said, "You know what? I want to ship you a bottle of Sullivan's Cove." Which did they send? I can't remember.
That was the
double oak.
That was the American oak.
The American oak.
Yeah.
I mean, and we were just blown away. And again, it's just delicious, phenomenal. I mean, surprising in terms of, a lot of people don't wrap their head around that such a good whiskey is coming out of Tasmania, but it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, the American and the double cask too. I mean, the double cask is, 2/3 of the American, 1/3 of the French, so it does have that higher sweetness to it. But because of the way that they the way that they add water to their whiskey rather than they don't filter it through a filtering system. They use an old method called racking, where they'll take the barrel over 2 to 3 weeks. They'll add fresh water to the barrel, and what that does is push all of the sediment and everything else down to the bottom. And they'll wait 3 or 4 months, and then they'll draw out of the barrel. So when you taste it, you get all of that rich, buttery mouthfeel because all the fats and oils are still in there. You're not losing all that by filtering or chill filtering.
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, they're not even filtering, let alone the non-chill filter.
Right.
They're using that whole different method.
Right. A very old method, and it takes time. But their philosophy has always been, well, if we've waited this long, what's another 3 or 4 months? Mind you, the distillery was sold at the end of last year. So we're waiting to see what the new owners are going to do. Hopefully they won't make a lot of changes to it because it's just a phenomenal product. But there are 10 or 12 other distilleries in Australia as well. It's funny because before 1991, it was illegal to distill in Australia.
Oh, you're kidding.
So that's why you haven't, all of these distilleries are fairly new. Sullivan's Cove, or the Tasmanian Distillery Company, has only been operating since '94.
Wow. Now I'm curious, with your expertise, where do you think the whole whiskey industry is going? I know it's just blowing up right now. It's really worldwide. I mean, bourbon's moving over into the Asian market. I mean, it's just really driven. If you were to pull out your tea leaves and pick where this is going, and you're so knowledgeable in the industry, where do you think everything's headed?
Well, that's a great question. I don't. Recently there's a lot of press and articles about the bourbon bubble bursting. There is a lot of new bourbon players in the marketplace, a lot of American distilleries. Whether or not demand exceeds supply, and some of that is happening. The craze and the demand for Japanese whiskeys came out of nowhere. 10 years ago, you could buy a Japanese whiskey. You might have had a choice of 2 or 3 in the U.S., and now there's 10 or 12, and anything Japanese comes in gets swallowed up right away.
Right.
But I think what that's doing is opening up the eyes and mouths of people willing to try world whiskeys. Scottish whiskeys are great. There's more distilleries opening up in Scotland. You're seeing Scottish whiskeys reverting back to non-age statements, which is a relatively new phenomena. I mean, prior to the early 70s, you didn't see a lot of age statements on whiskey. That was something that was done in the 70s, and it's created that mindset that an older whiskey or more aged whiskey is a better whiskey, which you guys know that's not the case.
Right.
So I think that I think the brown spirits are going to continue to grow. I think the whole appreciation for spirits, distilled spirits in general, is continuing to grow and develop. I mean, certainly the cocktail resurgence of the cocktail market and bartending becoming going back to becoming an art, which it always was, but more people getting involved in that is helping to stir that. And the younger generation don't have any of those preconceived ideas. They're not, there's still a lot of people out there that think Scotch is all peated.
Right.
Right. That I don't like Scotch because my grandfather or father, that's what they drank, was that heavily peated stuff, and that's not for me. And that's sort of like our generation thought that, but the younger generation, today's generation, who are going to be tomorrow's big buyers of whiskey, are willing to try different things, willing to experiment and make their own minds up about what they want.
Right. I would even go so far as what interests them about the brown spirit is the fact that there are so many different ways you can bottle it, consume it, mix it, cocktail it. I mean, what we're seeing on our end is, the whole idea, I always try to relate it as a team, like we like the Broncos. But these guys with whiskey, they don't have a single whiskey that they say, all I drink is X. They want to try everything, and they want to try everything that different places put out. I mean, it's very experiential at this point.
You're right. Yeah, they don't want to be told what to have. They want to make up their own minds, which is great. I think that's amazing. I mean, I love the fact when I'm doing a whiskey tasting event for, a small group or something, and somebody says, I've got more Amrut in my collection than anything else, or I've got more of this, or 60% of my whiskey collection is world whiskeys, and the rest are Scottish whiskeys or whatever. Well, that's great. I mean, nobody's told that person to do that. They've decided that that's what they like. Which you want to grab a hold of that and make sure that loyalty continues. But as long as you continue to produce a quality product and continue to make sure it's available in the marketplace, you got to make sure the supply's there, I think. And you don't want to continue raising the prices. I mean, frankly, I'll be honest here. I think Scotland is doing a disservice by continually increasing prices on things. They're alienating a lot of people out there.
Right.
The Japanese whiskeys. I mean, recently we've even seen bourbon. We've seen the Booker's sort of debacle, or whatever issue whatever word you want to use, where saying we're going to double the price. Oh no, we're not. We're going to phase it in. Whatever. Well, you know what? Get your get it right, because otherwise you're alienating your consumer base.
Very, very much so.
Let me bring up a couple of not questions, kind of a comment from Joanne, but she says she would like to say that small independent companies should consider changing the way they market the expensive, because it's all done by hand. As an example, Springbank says up to 60 people touch your bottle before it reaches your home. Thank you for employing those 60 people, keeping them local and helping the families. And then she goes on to say she doesn't mind spending $150 for one of those whiskeys. It's excellent to know how hard the distillery works at keeping their employees employed. As far as the English Whiskey Company goes, or Amrut, or Sullivan's Cove? How does that? I mean, are these smaller companies where more people are touching the bottles, or is it automated?
So Sullivan's Cove, until recently, had 5 people working at the distillery. Obviously, that when when they're bottling, that increases. People show up from anywhere to say, "Hey, let me help you. We're here. You're bottling."
Wow,
Um,
five
English,
people.
yeah, English whiskey is still a relatively small operation, still done by hand. David Fitt, who is the master distiller at the English Whiskey Company, um, came from a brewing background. He was a brewer at Green King Breweries, and so he still, wants that hands-on participation in there. Um, Amrut, makes a lot more than just their single malt whiskeys. They produce other products as well, but they employ a lot of people. There's a lot of people involved in it. It's not fully automated. It still comes down the bottles still come down the line, and it's somebody is pulling and filling the bottles by hand, and then it goes down. India's got a lot of people, and you need to employ people, and the Amrut Distilleries does employ a lot of people. They're a good benefactor to the community.
Now I've
Um,
got a question for you, and you may not be able to get into this just because I don't know where you're working on new distilleries. We've just talked about distilleries out of Australia and Tasmania. We know there's Cavalon in Taiwan. We know all the Japanese whiskeys. We know about the English Whiskey Company. Is there anything coming out of another area? If you can talk about it. I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking, is there anything coming out of South Korea or other regions that maybe the viewers aren't aware of that you've heard something about?
well, South Africa certainly has production of whiskey. Three Ships is
They
doing a great job, and there's a couple of others. A lot of European countries, Switzerland, Denmark, the Netherlands, Germany, are all producing whiskey. I'll be over in Germany in March for a couple of events, and then attending a Pro Wine, which is a big trade event where I'm hoping to source other products. And at the same time, we'll have the chance to visit some German distilleries. Um, there's a lot that is sort of tucked away there. Part of the problem in bringing whiskey into the U.S. is two things. One is you have to have 750 ml bottles. The rest of the world, 700 is acceptable. A lot of
that's because we need more.
a lot of distilleries in Europe sell in 500 mLs, which we cannot do in the U.S.
Really?
We can do 375s, but again, it's so if you say to a distillery, "Well, I need 750s or I need 375s," it's an additional cost that they have to invest in sourcing those bottles and doing all that. Secondly, any whiskey that's from a non-traditional producing country, so if it's not from Canada, Ireland, Scotland, or the U.S., it has to go through all of these hoops that the federal government imposes. So the TTB, which is the Tobacco and Trade Bureau, makes us send a bottle to their lab for lab testing, a full bottle,
Wow.
and I don't think all of that's being tested. But then they test it and they come back and say, okay, well, we think it should be. We still have to disclose the whole manufacturing process and all the ingredients, and they say it should be classified as this, and then we have to get the labels approved and get the product in here. So there's a lot of steps. Whereas if you're making it in Scotland or Ireland, because it's from there, and as long as you're adhering to the regulations in your specific country, you can export it to the US, and all you have to do is get the label approved and do that. So it makes it a lot easier. So that's why we're not, we don't see a lot from Europe, from other countries. It is out there. There is a great, India, Amrut, everybody knows of. There's now two other single malt
Paul John.
Paul John, and Rampur. So there's 2 more that are available in the U.S. now, which is great again because it just is going to increase the whole awareness of Indian single malt whiskey, Indian whiskey. Indian whiskey has always had a negative connotation to it because most of the whiskey that's made in India is molasses based with some grain alcohol added to it, so it's not real whiskey. It cannot be sold as whiskey anywhere else in the world, only in India. But when you get quality single malt whiskeys like Amrut, like Paul John, coming and Rampur coming out there, people, I mean, you guys know how good Amrut is.
Very.
You know, you've been exposed to it for a while, and I think people just really are getting their eyes open to it. It's the same thing with, like I said earlier about Japanese whiskeys. People didn't know about Japanese whiskeys before, and now everybody wants Japanese whiskeys. And I think, I always throw the question out: is India the next Japan?
Oh God, yes.
Well, let's go back to Amrut real quick, and we talked a little bit before we went live. And I went back and looked. It was May of 2015. Me and Bart had been doing reviews for a little over a year and a half. We were in the liquor store, and Bart picks up Amrut Fusion.
Yep.
And at the time, it was $70 or $80. It was an Indian
70,
single malt whiskey.
Right.
We didn't know anything about it.
Hadn't heard anything. Picked it up blind.
We were blown away by it. I picked up a bottle, and it's been just sitting on my shelf, sealed.
Right.
Until we were sitting here, and
Because
usually
you were drinking mine, which is now
yeah. But anyway, before we go live, we pour a little dram of something, and Bart said, "Well, let's do the Amrut," and I said, "Well, it's not open," and I was like, "Open it up. We're having Raj on the show." And so it's been a year since I've had it, and it is just as delicious as I remember it.
Yeah.
A delicious sherry influenced and almonds coming through and oak.
Well, and you know what I like is, Raj, tell them again what you just told us, which we didn't know, was pull out the bottle and read the back. I mean, explain some of that.
Yeah, so if you want to show the back label, Bart, it's so every release of Amrut is unique because these are not single casks, but it has, you can see it has a batch number on it.
Let me talk here for a second. Oh, sorry.
Right there. So this one says batch number 42 on it, and then February 2016.
We'll have to talk.
We'll talk a little bit so they can see it real quick.
Yep. So February 2016 is when that one was bottled. Everyone, by regulations in India, it has to have the batch number and the bottling date on it. So you are going to get slight nuances and variations from batch to batch. So Amrut Fusion, and there's still a little confusion out there about how it's made. It is a pure single malt. It is all made by Amrut Distilleries. They make a single malt whiskey, cask strength, obviously, and then a 46% version of it, which is just the cask strength that's been watered down. Then they also make a peated whiskey. And for their peated whiskey, because there's no peat in India, they source the barley from Scotland. It's shipped over to the distillery. All the mashing, distilling, aging, and bottling, everything else is done at the distillery. To make Fusion, they take 75% of the single malt, the cask strength, and 25% of their peated cask strength. And the two are vatted together and aged further before they're bottled. So it's a pure 100% Amrut production.
Well, and I do notice at least this batch, and it's probably been the same for all of them, this one's 50%.
They're all 50%, yeah. Except in India, they sell them at 46%. They can't sell them at 50%.
Really? And just again to show that we're the dummies, right before we went live, Raj was giving us this education. So, and I was like, you're going to have to repeat that when we get live because that's wonderful, wonderful information that's coming out.
Yeah. So it's not, I mean, some people think that it's, they're buying whiskey. They think that Amrut's buying already made whiskey from Scotland and blending it in there. That's not the case. This is a single malt whiskey. It is made 100% by Amrut Distilleries. And when I use the term vatted, I mean 98% of whiskey that's out there from Scotland is vatted. I mean, unless you buy a single cask whiskey,
Right.
everything is vatted. They'll take anywhere from 14 to 40 different barrels. They're all dumped together and then bottled or diluted down. So that's a vatting. That's a blending, right? Unless you buy a single cask, every whiskey is blended.
Right. Now, just some of your personal history, and you correct me where I'm wrong because we are the dummies. But I believe when we had chatted, I know you had told me that you used to work internationally and you worked for a very large company. I won't get into any of that. But I believe I'd either read somewhere or you told me, and I can't remember which, was it your brother in New York that first kind of introduced you to single malts, or how did you come into single malts yourself?
No, I don't have a brother in New York, but
I missed that.
growing up, my dad always, my dad, we were all born in England, and my dad spent a number of years in England, so he was always a whiskey drinker, and we always had at home Chivas. I remember the Chivas 25 and Johnny Walker Black. He always had that at the house. So when we were old enough to drink, we always drank blends. And back in the 70s, I mean, the only, your go-to single malt back then was Glenfiddich. I mean, that's what was out in the marketplace, and we all, we drank Glenfiddich thinking that was the bee's knees of single malt. But I grew up in Canada, so we drank a lot of Canadian whiskey, and little did we know, we all called it rye, and did we know back then how much little rye was actually in it, if any. And I just grew up liking whiskey and tasting different single malts. And when I was at a friend's house, and an older gentleman, he says, "You got to try this whiskey." He poured me. This is must be in 85 or 86. He poured me a Lefroy quarter cask, which I'd never had before. Yeah. And I tasted it, nosed it, and said, "What the hell is this? This is incredible." And was just blown away by it. And that sort of opened my eyes and said, "Wow, so there can be lots of different whiskeys out there." And I just continued to explore all of the different styles out there. And so what, in the early to mid 80s, there wasn't a lot of choice. I mean, there wasn't a lot of whiskeys that were available in Canada or in the U.S. Certainly no world whiskeys. You might have seen a little bit of Japanese. There might have been a little bit of Yamazaki out there, but other than that, it was all from Scotland as far as single malts went. There weren't even any Irish single malts out there into the U.S. market. And now obviously we've seen a plethora of different whiskeys, single malt whiskeys coming out there.
Yeah, we're like living in a golden age of whiskeys right now. I mean, it's just, I know we can't all get what we would like, but there's so much coming as well. Right. That was one reason I touched on where you thought we were headed, just because I know even in the States, we've got a lot of distilleries popping up, and I know it's happening worldwide.
Yes.
Is there anything that you've heard that, not saying that you're working with them, but that you've heard has popped up somewhere?
Well, I mean, I think, like you said, every day you hear about a new whiskey distillery opening in the U.S. I mean, there's all of that. The whole term of craft distilling has sort of been misused or misappropriated. I mean, if you're if you're sourcing a whiskey from a big producer like MPI and then you bottle it, where's the craft in that?
Right.
Maybe the craft's in the fact that you pick the barrels out, but is that really craft? So I think that some of that has to get addressed. I think there's probably now distilleries in most states, if not all of them. I don't think that I don't know of a distillery in Alaska, but there might be one. There is one up in the Northwest Territories in Canada, so that's on the same latitude as Alaska, so I couldn't see why there wouldn't be one there. But again, they have limited growing season which to source their grain to make the whiskeys from. But there's it's great to see them, but the only danger is that sometimes people get so excited about the fact that they're so blinded by the fact that everything's going on, and they open up a distillery thinking that somebody's going to come in and buy my distillery. And just by the virtue of the fact that I have a distillery, those are the ones that I like to see weeded out.
Sure.
I mean, the owners and the distilleries that are making really good whiskey and are passionate about it and are doing everything the right way. They're the ones that obviously I want to support and want to see stick around.
100%. Now, we've been recently surprised with a lot of the things that are coming out of Canada. And I know you've got interest in Canada, but that's also where you originally, I know you told me you lived in Canada for a while as well, correct?
I grew up in Canada, so I still think of Canada and Toronto as my home. I mean, that's where I spent most of my life. But I've lived in 5 countries and 18 cities, so it's a lot of different places, a lot of different influences. But Canada, you're right, Bart. Canada is, if you talk to Davin de Korkemek about, who's a Canadian whiskey guru, he really believes Canada is on the verge of getting that notoriety that it deserves. I mean, what's coming out of Canada now is not your average Canadian whiskey. There are a lot of good single malt, single ryes, and those are real rye, 100% rye whiskeys that are coming out of Canada. And Canada produces some really great rye. The winter rye especially is a different strain of rye than what you get in the U.S. And to make 100% rye whiskey like Stock and Barrel does, or Stillwater's Distillery produces, phenomenal rye, just an incredible rye whiskey.
Now, let me ask you because Joanne loved this question when I asked her off the air. Are you about to go to the store, or are you about to go to the store?
Oh God!
I don't need to go to the store. I got my own store.
There you go. But back on the whiskey, although apparently someone likes the linguisticness of the Canadians, I am curious. Like, what really surprised me was when, and well before it was in the Whiskey Bible with Murray, was that Crown Royal Northern Harvest Rye really took me by storm. And then, when you sent the Stock and Barrel down, that single malt, I mean, again, I was surprised, and I'm with you. I feel, talking to Joanne and some other folks, I feel like there's about to be just a mountain of wonderful whiskeys coming from the north. I mean, I think we're about ready.
Our top 5 America's whiskey, which is America and Canadian whiskeys, comes out this Wednesday, and Stock and Barrel may make an appearance in that.
Maybe, but yeah, can you shed any light on that just from your knowledge?
Well, I mean, let's not forget that during Prohibition, any or all whiskey that was consumed in the U.S. was from Canada. I mean, Hiram Walker didn't build a distillery on the Detroit River just because there was water there. I mean, it's relatively short rowing distance from Windsor to Detroit, where all the whiskey smuggling happened and everything else was going on there. But so Canada's always had some influence on the U.S. whiskey scene. I mean, there are a lot of other products that are American whiskeys that are 100% sourced in Canada. Not everybody will disclose that, but some of the better producers, better name brands are doing that.
Sure.
But the rest of what's being produced in Canada, because Canada's been later to the game of craft distilling than the U.S. has been. Yeah, it's a smaller market out there. There's more startup costs to produce it, but the whiskey is no less in quality. I mean, I think they're doing amazing jobs out there, making amazing whiskey. People are passionate about it. I mean, Barry and Barry from Stillwaters, they were Ontario's first craft distillery. It's still a small operation. The two of them, they bring in some people to help them when they're bottling, but they're still doing all the distillation process and deciding what to make and how to make it. Yep. Their new blended whiskeys, the red blend and the blue blend, they finally decided they had enough aged whiskey out there. And Canada's a little different than the U.S. In the U.S., you put different grains in your mash bill to make your whiskey. In Canada, typically, they've made the whiskey separately. So you'll have a corn whiskey, 100% corn, 100% rye, 100% malt, some wheat, whatever. They're aged separately, and then they're blended to make the whiskey. So you're drawing from separate barrels to make your whiskey, which really makes a different style and a different quality of whiskey.
Now, Bart was frowning when I asked you about the about or the boot, but at least I didn't ask him if his favorite movie was On Golden Pond.
Oh my God, he's going back to Don Sutcliffe. I can't apologize enough. Apparently, I brought up a movie deal and I mentioned On Golden Pond. We won't even go into that. That's his shot back at me. I'm sorry, Don. I meant nothing by it.
We are over our hour, Mark.
Are we over? No way.
We're at an hour and 6 minutes.
Get out. I can talk to Raj for like another 2 hours.
We're going good. I wanted to bring that up. If we need to shut her down or keep going.
Well, why don't we let Raj bring us around, because we probably should. We try to keep it at about an hour, both for you and for the viewers.
I know there's a lot of people, the Packers and the Cowboys game is coming up though in 30 minutes, and some people are trying. And Raj, you're a Packers fan, isn't that right?
Well, I am by marriage. By marriage.
Really?
Yeah. My wife's family's from Wisconsin, and so by virtue, if I want to stay in the good books of my in-laws and the rest of the family, I have to cheer for the Packers.
Well, maybe we'll have a Steelers and a Packers Super Bowl.
Well, that would that would repeat, right? They did that in
that's right.
2011, 2010, 2011, yeah.
Well, let's come back to Raj. Raj, whatever way you want to end this with, or whatever you want to talk about. So, open school.
Hold on, let's do this. Hold
on.
We've got a couple of comments that come in. People want us to keep talking.
Okay.
They want the conversation. So send us some comments or some questions in. Let me go back. It seems like Frank Lampert had asked again. This was a while back.
Frank.
Huh?
Frank, go ahead.
Yeah. What do you think about the craze that surrounds the Pappy whiskeys?
Well, I think anything that's perceived to be in short supply is going to drive a craze, right? I mean, it's classic marketing, right? If you have something that is short supply and you convince people that it's rare, and therefore we're going to charge a higher price for it, and it's going to be out there. I mean, it comes back to the old question about is an older whiskey a better whiskey? I mean, is a Pappy 25 better than a Pappy 15? I like the 15-year-old. I think the 23 or 25 is a little too woody. Mm-hmm. Would I pay $500 or $1,000 for a Pappy 23 or 25? No. But if somebody wants to buy it, I'm not going to stop them from doing it. If they invite me over to drink it with them, I'm not going to say no. But
pour me a double.
Yeah, I just think it's marketing. I mean, it's genius marketing, to create that.
Hey, Raj, here's a question for you. Choose one distillery. Who would you work for?
Oh, that's not fair.
Who would I work for?
It's a question that came in. What distillery would you choose if you could choose one distillery to work for?
Wow. That's a tough question.
Or does that put you in a tough spot?
Yeah, you got business. He's got business that's going on here.
Well, what do you think the others are going to
Well, see, I get
quit importing my stuff? Because
Well,
you
yeah,
chose
this way, you know, rather than working for a distillery, I work for several distilleries because I get to choose and select their products and bring them into the marketplace. So I think I prefer what I'm doing now because I get to represent a number of really cool and great brands rather than tying myself to one distillery in particular.
I agree. Now, there's been a comment in here since we're on that. What is your favorite movie?
My favorite movie, well, it's a toss-up between Blade Runner and Casablanca.
Oh, you're right in my wheelhouse, brother. Play
Yeah.
it again, Sam.
Yeah,
The
there you go. The director's cut of Blade Runner. I can watch that anytime.
Oh my goodness! I need to travel to Pittsburgh so we can just watch movies.
Hey, let's do this real quick, just in case there are some people that are wanting to tune out for the football games.
Sure, we
Back
got to let Raj go.
to the English whiskey company, Peated single malt. I hate to score it off of what I've done so far. This would be low 90s for me, 91, 92, 93,
Nice.
somewhere in that range.
Yes.
What do you think? Same?
Sure.
And at $110 a bottle, totally worth it.
Yes.
I would have a bottle of this sitting back here behind me.
Right. Well, I wouldn't put it in plain view. I would hide it so that my serious whiskey friends could try it.
Right. Yeah, no, that's great to hear. I mean, I think I think more people need to know about it. And you asked me earlier, bring full circle. I would just encourage people to get out of their box, get out of their normal wheelhouse of thinking, and reach out to other whiskeys. I mean, I tend to, if I'm at a bar, I'll chat up the bartender, or I'll look at the list and say, what do you have that I don't know about? And it's kind of hard to give me something that I don't know about, but if they have something that I haven't had before, I will try it. I don't care where it's from, because the only way you can appreciate things is by trying them, and you know, it's always all about educating, right? If you stick to your own, you know, your little area of what you like, you're never going to broaden your horizons or broaden your taste range.
Yeah, I do that a lot too when I'm out. I'll look at the whiskey list and I'm always choosing something that I haven't had.
Right.
I mean, get a simple drink of it, whether it's $12 or even $20, $25. I'll try something I haven't had.
Or, you know, it's great to go into a whiskey bar that's going to offer you a flight. You know, I think if you chat them up, you talk to the bartenders, or if it's a smaller place, talk to the owner, tell them you're passionate about it. What you like, what you don't like. Say, hey, you know, how about give me a flight? Just like quarter ounce pours or whatever, do something for me, just so I can try a bunch of different ones. I mean, if they're willing to do that, that's great.
100%.
Don't limit yourself to just having one whiskey.
Let me hit a couple of things real quick. First of all, Whiskey Throttle just got the quote. He's the first one. We haven't even talked about it.
Yeah, we haven't.
No one's brought it up yet.
Scott always puts a quote on his dry erase board back here, and then fans are always chiming in.
If you can see it.
I hadn't seen it either. I kept playing. I don't think the heavy stuff is coming down for quite a while.
Oh, there you go. That's from Caddyshack.
I don't think the heavy stuff is coming down for quite a while.
That's from Caddyshack. That's great.
There you go, Rod.
You did a good Bill Murray. That was good.
And
that was kind.
Cypeq, CYPEQ. I know you've joined in before. I don't know how to pronounce that. He wants to know who shot first. Now, what he's referring to is Han or Greedo.
Come on.
Han Solo shot first. Of course. Don't even change it.
Yes.
Come on. Now, I just brought that up because I have to say, when I was watching The Force Awakens, the scene where Han and Chewie's ship gets boarded by the other smugglers, and he's in the standoff in the hallway with them.
Sure.
That was a perfect spot for Han to go, come on, guys, you know sometimes I've got to shoot first.
Oh, wow.
And they totally
You're right.
shot for redemption on George Lucas redoing the scene in the cantina.
Now, on that, I think we're over. I think we got to let the whiskey expert Raj go.
Okay, I agree. I think it's time to recap.
He's got football to watch.
Yep, and I've got football to watch as well.
There you go.
On a recap, first of all, beautiful packaging. And I know, I mean, I agree with you 100%. What they're putting out is a extremely quality whiskey that's inside. The juice in here is beyond what the packaging is.
Yep. You're right. It's great. And I think the more people that learn about it and try it, will feel the same way.
And but like I say, before we started the cast, we poured a little sample of the Root Fusion, which we had on the shelf. Simply delicious as well. You import that. Again, with us today was Whiskey, or on Twitter, he's known as @Whiskey Raj. Whiskey Raj, Raj Sabharwal.
Right. Now, what you're also getting here is you guys can hear it here. The whiskey expertise has come across, and thank you for bringing in some different things that can be experienced, and pleased all the fans out there, go out and experience everything from Root and from the English Whiskey Company. It's just delicious and phenomenal.
Great. Well, Scott and Bart, thanks for your time and for having me on. I hope that all your viewers and listeners out there enjoyed this, and hopefully they'll go out and try something different next time they're looking for a whiskey.
That's right. Thank you to everybody that joined in. We've had good comments coming in. We've had good viewers watching. Bart. Hey, Raj, stay on the line here. We'll hang up with the live cast, but then stay on. We'll keep up here with you for a minute.
Because we're going to scotch it, you Scotch gods.
So long, Dummies.
All right. Cheers, guys.
All right. We're turning her off. See you guys.